Good morning, everybody. This is week 3, video number 2, Tuesday's assignment, or if you're moving ahead, this should be the second video that you are watching for this week. We are going to go ahead and start with Chapter 9, and Chapter 9 is Statistics. So today's lesson is going to be just a little introduction to statistics. And there's 2 vocabulary words here for you. We have statistics and then statistical questions. So statistics is basically just the science of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and interpreting data. And statistical questions are questions in which you would expect a variety of answers. So there's many different ways that you can analyze a set of data. There's pie charts, there's bar graphs, there's line graphs, there's dot plots, which is what we're going to do today. So let's go ahead. I'm going to show you how to do a dot plot, and we're going to use number of siblings as our data set. So what I would have liked to have done was do this lesson in class where I would ask each of you, there's 18 students in class, and I would ask each of you how many siblings you have, and we would write down that data set. But since I don't have you in class right now, unfortunately, I am just going to go ahead and take a data set from the textbook that we are going to use, and I will show you how you make a dot plot, how you read the dot plot, and this is one of the ways that you can express this data. So, for example, if I ask a student how many siblings they have, I'm going to have 23 answers here. So if somebody says 4, 1, 2, 0, 2, 1, 3, 1, 5, 3, 2, 1, 3, 7, 1, 1, 2, 1, 5, 2, 4, 3, and 2. I believe that's 23. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, yes. So imagine you ask 23 people or 23 friends how many siblings they have, and this is the answers you received. So you should have 23 answers. Now, to make a dot plot, you would make a number line, or the line that looks like a number line, just like I have here. And the first thing you want to do is find the lowest number and the highest number, so you know where to start your number line. So if I'm looking at this data set, I see that 0 is the lowest number. So I'm going to start my dot plot with 0. And then we go as high as 7. I think 7 is the highest. Yes. So then I'm going to go ahead and label the number line. I will start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So, and I also named it down here. I named it the number of siblings. So anybody that is looking at this chart or this dot plot will be able to know what it is representing. It is representing the number of siblings with these 23 people. So it's very important that you do label anytime you're making any sort of statistical representation. You must label it so the other person knows what you are graphing. Okay, so now a dot plot is just what it's called. You use dots. You will put a dot each time you get a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. So I'm going to just go along the line and I'm going to put the dots where they go, and I'll show you what I mean here. So we'll start with with the first one. The first one is 4. So I'm going to put a dot at 4. And then I'm going to cross it out. So I know that I already graphed that. Okay, so then I have a 1. So I'm going to put a dot at 1. And I'll cross that out. Then we have 1 at 2. Cross that out. I have 1 at 0. Okay, I have another 1 at 2. So I'm just going to put it right on top of the first one. Cross it out. Another 1 at 1. 1 at 3. Another 1 at 1. 1 at 5. So I'm just placing dots where they go on this chart. That one goes on a 3, 2, 1. One and 1. Uh-oh, I'm getting into my data set here. Another 1. Didn't leave myself enough room. 2, 4, 3, and another 2. Okay, so that is my dot plot for these 23 answers. Okay, so now when you look at this, there's other vocabulary that goes along with this. I'm going to just go ahead and flip to the next screen, and then we'll come back and we'll label the dot plot with what these are. Okay, so here you might want to pause the video if you need to write this down. But the first thing that we see is a cluster. Okay, so what is a cluster? A cluster is where many of the data points lie in a group. So think about that as a cluster of points. So there's a lot, most of the data points are involved in this cluster. Okay, and I'll show you what that looks like when we flip back over. The peak. The peak is where the most data points are. So you will be able to label the peak by seeing which part of that number line has the most points. That will be your peak. A gap is where there are no data points. So if there's any part of that chart that has no data points, then that would be considered a gap. And then an outlier is a data point that is far away from the other points. It's kind of an outcast, or someone that's really not part of the group. It's a point that's not part of the group. All right, so let's go back to this first slide and let's label that. So where would the cluster be? So I would consider the group of 1, 2, and 3. Here, I'm going to put a different color here. I would consider this part to be a cluster. Okay, so this is where most of the points are. Okay, so this would be considered the cluster. The peak would then be number 1, because number 1 is where most of the data points are. That means of these 23 people, most of them have only one sibling. Okay, so that's what that represents. For 6, there are no data points on 6, so we would consider this a gap. And then the last one was the outlier, and I would consider this guy right here an outlier. Oops. Because this point is far away from all the other points. It's usually going to be typically after a gap. Okay? So, any questions on that? You know how to reach me. Thank you so much.